Hey Minties, it's that time of year again. I am here to talk about my favorite reads of 2021. All right guys, am I filming on Christmas or after Christmas? Am I too lazy to put down my tree right away? The world may never know. Maybe the answer is all of the above. Who knows? All right, so let's get to it. But before I start, I should say that these are my favorite reads of the year, but this doesn't necessarily mean that these books came out this year. These are just the books that I've read this year that I have really liked. I've gone back through my Goodreads. I've looked back through the videos I've done on this channel for Old Reader, New Reader, and for my other live show, Fangirls Assemble, which is on the Omnibus Collectors Network, just to see what I've liked this year. And it's kind of a mix of things. So first of all, and these are in no particular order, but first of all is Far Sector by N.K. Jemisin and Jamal Campbell. So I did do an Old Reader, New Reader, I think last year with Maki Roll and Omar. And we talked about like the first 7 or so issues of this, but now that the book is out in trade, I finally got to finish it. And first of all, just look how beautiful she is. Oh my gosh. So this is DC's new Green Lantern, and she is phenomenal. And basically this is very new reader friendly, even if you've never even read any DC or Green Lantern or anything, but maybe you like more, sci-fi fantasy, like Star Trek. This is for you. It's about this Green Lantern that is a sector that does not have a Green Lantern. She is sent there with limited powers to help this world who, they had no, violence or death or anything or any issues for, hundreds of years due to, a mood stabilizer that they use. So a murder happens, so she's there to figure it out. And so it's this mix of, Afrofuturistic, I don't know what the genre category is. And also these really cool takes on diplomacy and also taking in her background, because she used to be a cop and also in the army back in, the United States. And so how does she take that and how does that apply to her being through this diplomatic force for this alien world? It's amazing. The art's beautiful. The character design is absolutely amazing. It's just, come on. Anything with Jamal Campbell on it or N.K. Jemisin, I'm there. But man, Jamal Campbell's artwork, can you just take that in? There's nothing else I've read this year where the art gets me quite as much. The detail, the colors, the way, the expressions, the character design, absolutely fantastic. I think anyone can fall in love with, what's her name, Joe? I think anyone can fall in love with this Green Lantern. I want to be this Green Lantern so bad. So, Far Sector. So next, now I don't have all these books with me. Unfortunately, some of them are online. Some of them I do own physically, but I actually lent a few of these out because I love them so much I want other people to read them. So next on my list is Cosmo Nights, and this is by Hannah Templer. I was really lucky to find this secondhand at a half-price books, but I just like the cover, I like the feel, and this is another, in space. There's mechs, but it's mechs and fantasy, and it details around this group of pilots almost who will put on these mech suits and fight in these battles. But it's you took that, but also take more feudal time where we have these knights dueling each other for the chance to win, a princess's hand in marriage sort of deal. And so all these princesses across space, these other ruling people on other planets send themselves or a champion to defeat these others in a duel or a tourney and then win this princess. And they've decided that they're not gonna let this happen anymore, that these princesses should have some agency of their own. So these Cosmo Knights together, they go to planet to go to these different tourneys, win the princess, and then free them away from their plight, basically. And at the heart of it, you have a character that is looking for a lost friend of hers who is a princess who was taken away or was able to escape being married off. And so while she's joining this crew, she's also looking for her friend. Awesome, really fun art. It's also a web comic, so if you are interested in reading it and checking it out for yourself, you can read that for free online. And the website is www.cosmonights.space, and that is nights with a K. Super recommend. I'll give it a 5 out of 5 on Goodreads. All right, next, this is definitely not a new book, but it's new to me. And that is Icon, as Milestone's Icon. So I read that with a friend of mine, Phil, on Old Reader, New Reader. We've since gone to read another couple of the Milestone comic books, which is great because there is a revival of Milestone comic books with DC Comics right now. So a lot of those characters are coming back. There's also a re-release of those stories, like an omnibus format. So I read Icon. This came out in 1993, ran to like 1997, along with a few other comics like Hardware, you know, all of those. This is by Dwayne McDuffie, M.D. Bright, and Mike Gustovich. This book blew my mind, and I loved it so much. I could not believe that I was not hearing more people talk about it. Maybe just because it was a different property that got folded into DC Comics. But the main character of this Icon is kind of like a Superman-esque type of character. So he's an alien. He came here. He took on the look of the first human he met, which was a black woman who was during slavery times. And so, he lived as an enslaved person, and then through the civil rights movement. And finally, in what was the present time, 1993, he was a very wealthy man, I think in like a big city. I don't know if it was New York or a different city. And he had these superpowers, basically a lot of the same ones that Superman does. And he chooses not to use them. He chooses just to, you know, do his big businessman thing. But he's so far removed from the plight of like the regular people in the city around him, from like, you know, the more urban areas in his city. And he meets Raquel Irvin, who ends up becoming his like sidekick, who is from like a different part of town. And they become like a duo here, where she's like, hey, you have these amazing abilities. You can help people. And so he goes through this book at the beginning as a very like conservative, pull yourself up by your bootstraps sort of guy, like, oh, you can just fix your own life. And once he goes downtown, he sees like, oh wait, no, they have a lot going against them. They have a lot of things in their way. And I've forgotten what that's like, and I can help people, and I should help people. And so you see this kind of growth, and it is a fantastic story. I think if you're a classic comic book, like action superhero fan, you'll love Icon. If you like Superman, but you want something a little bit different, Icon's where it's at. Like, this is perfect. I'm so excited for the revival of all the Milestone comic books, because I think if you like Icon, you'll like all the other ones. This blew me away. I'm in love with Augustus Freeman. I think he's fantastic. And now I'm upset that I don't have more merch to buy to rep Milestone comic books, because I love it. All right, next is The Girl from the Sea. This is another one that I do own, but I really liked it, so I lent it out. This is published by Graphics Comics. It is by Molly Ostertag, which is a name that's probably pretty familiar to a lot of people at home watching this. But this is more of like a teen, younger audience graphic novel, more like all ages. But I really love the art and the writing. It's pretty simple story, but this girl ends up befriending like this mermaid that she finds, and they kind of have an interesting balance and relationship turn, or friendship turn, like romantic relationship. And she doesn't really know how to deal with it. And the mermaid needs her help on land. Not a mermaid, my bad, it's a selkie. It's like a seal turned, person. You could see how I'd be confused. So she needs her help saving like whatever's going on in her waters. And a lot of that's like pollution and everything else. And there's this back and forth because the main character, this human girl, is really enjoying the Selkie's company and like really falling for her, but doesn't know how to tell everyone else about her, and also about her own like sexuality and everything else like that. It's a very cute book, very fun. I mean, I know it seems like I gave you a lot of like heavy things. There are a couple of heavy things, but overall, like, it was just a really wonderful read. It was very comfortable. It's a comfy read. People should have some comfy reads every once in a while. Next. This is one that I do not have a copy of yet, and I am kicking myself because I still need to buy the copy, because I read it all online through the the website, because this is a webtoon, is Oh Human Star by Blue Delaquanti. They wrote a fantastic story, and I had never heard of this. I didn't know how, because it seems like a lot of things, the kind of thing that I would love, I did love, and that a lot of my friends would also really enjoy. And so this is another futuristic, there's robots, but this older gentleman, he was building robots and like AI and everything else. And he was pretty well known for that, but he dies, or what he thinks dies, and he wakes up again 16 years later, and his partner has basically brought him back to life and like saved his memories and made a robot that looks like him, as well as he kind of carried their dream into fruition and made an AI robot that kind of like grows up. And this robot is sort of like a clone of him. So he's tried to recreate his friend with his friend's memories, but kind of messed up and created a different robot, a younger one of him. And this one has decided to be a woman instead. And so it's very interesting. So basically these two, they're dealing with this, like, one of them is coming back to life and dealing with that while he's also dealing with his like robot daughter and trying to figure out what that means and what that means for him. And the story, besides just being cool in robotics and dealing with how to be different and all that stuff and like looking for acceptance, of course, it's just really touching. I think I cried a lot at the end of it. But the art's great. I super recommend it. Check out ohhumanstar.com just to see how you feel about it, if you like it. But I think Blue, they did a great, fantastic job with this book. Next one is definitely also not a new read, as in newly came out, but it was new for me to read, which is Sweet Tooth by Jeff Lemire. Of course, like everybody else, I read it in anticipation of the show coming out. And then I think read it again after the show as well. Absolutely loved it, of course. I mean, it's Jeff Lemire. I haven't read a single Jeff Lemire thing that I didn't absolutely adore. And unlike Omar, I am one of those people that really enjoys Jeff Lemire's art. I like how raw it is. There's something that shows a lot of heart in it. And, I think most people probably know about Sweet Tooth, but it's about this, animal-human hybrid kid named Gus who, kind of after some death in his family, has to kind of go out on his own and figure out his way in the world after he's been raised in the wood, essentially just by his father his entire life. Without really knowing about what's going on in the outside world, like the sickness, what happens to other human-animal hybrids, like all of this stuff, while kind of relying on the kindness of an older gentleman named, is it Jeopard, who also has its own sort of things going on, and they kind of find each other in this like pseudo like father-son relationship and deal with their loss together. And while at the same time you have this huge back picture of things going on, it reminds me of like Last of Us. It kind of feels like a zombie film because it's kind of post-apocalyptic without being a zombie film, where like the biggest dangers are the other people around you. Great, fantastic read. Obviously Jeff Lemire, 10 out of 10. So glad I read it. Next, Barbarian Lord by Matt Smith. Oh my gosh. I picked this up this year to read with my friends Lee and Chris Schweitzer after their recommendations, and I ate this up. If you love Conan, if you love Viking and Nordic, like history and culture, you're gonna love Barbarian Lord. Not only is the art just like fun and beautiful, the colors are great, but your main characters, who very reminds me of like a Conan character, very like strong, buff dude, barely dressed, who's on his own like, epic journey. The writing in here is so beautifully done. And I don't know how to quite describe it, but it's like, it just feels like reading poetry. The dialogue in here was beautiful. And I think, which is a weird way for me to describe something after saying, oh, it's like Conan, but like Vikings and Nordic, right? More Slavic roots. But there's something about it that was just such a fun ride. So yeah, if you like Conan, pick up Barbarian Lord by Matt Smith. All right, so we are to my last few picks. Next one is a much older book that I read because of my friend Phil, and that is Batman: A Lonely Place in Dying. I do not know how I did not read that until this year. But it was collected, it's the like 6-issue collection of like from Titans and Batman, which is written by Marv Wolfman and George Perez. Storyline illustrated by Jim Aparo, George Perez, Tom Grummett, Mike DiCarlo, and Bob McLeod. Absolutely love this. So this centers more around like Batman's like grieving process and like, you know, Tim joining in as the new Robin and what that looks like. Because I asked my friend Phil, like, I want to read Intro Tim, please, because I'm a big Titans fan and Tim was his favorite character, so I wanted to know more about that. And this is another one where the art was beautiful, the colors are beautiful, and it really showed, you know, I love anything that shows Batman's more like human side. I'm not much of a like, oh man, Batman's hardcore, life is hard, he's got a gun. That's not my Batman. My Batman is like awkward and not emotionally intelligent and doesn't know how to deal with anything. And I like the Bat family aspect of Batman more than I like Batman. So this was everything to me. I loved it. I know we talked about it for way longer than I thought we would because we had so many good nuggets to dig into with Batman: A Lonely Place in Dying. All right, so our second to last book is going to be an interesting sell. I can't say that I would ever read it again, but I can say it's an absolute 10 out of 10 masterpiece of a book. And that is Did You Hear What Eddie Gein Done? And this is by Eric Powell and Harold Schester. I'm so sorry. I should have looked this up, how to pronounce it before, but I did not. And Harold is a true crime writer, which I think is why it was so effective. So this is about the serial killer Eddie Gein. And he is kind of the inspiration of, you know, movies like Psycho, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Silence of the Lambs. You know, if someone who, I don't want to describe it because it's not really appropriate, but if you know what I'm talking about, it details his like childhood up until, you know, his later in life, what he was like after the crimes were committed. It was gruesome and very effective, and at least gruesome in the way that they did not show the worst parts of the crime, which I really appreciate. You know, I don't think that's needed, especially in a graphic novel, because that is a really tough sell if you know the things that he did. But it's just the perfect amount of creep factor the whole time, because you have this an edginess about what he's dealt with, how people talk to him, how he talks to other people, what his family life was like, and you see how he gets to where he is. And it was very rough. It was so good. And after it was over, I was like, this is incredible. And I really did enjoy talking about it like on a show afterwards. So it's one of those that if you are into true crime, or if you like reading that sort of thing, or if you just really want to be on edge for a little bit, it is absolutely fantastic. And the art is perfectly suited. It's just creepy in the right way. Wonderful. Would not read again because it creeped me out. I don't think I could handle it again, but I am so glad I did read it the first time. So maybe it's one of these, you buy a copy, read it, and then like, you know, pass it along with friends. I think that's a perfect example. My last one is a TKO pick. So I'm a diehard TKO Studios fan. And I did pick up these two beautiful volumes of Scales and Scoundrels, which I loved. And I picked up just because I thought, well, it seems like Dungeons and Dragons, and I play Dungeons and Dragons, of course. And they're only the first 2 volumes now. There hasn't been any more yet. I hope that they do come out with more, because it definitely is open enough to have more. These are nice, beautiful trades, by the way, which also a big seller. And this is by Sebastian Gerner, Galad, and Jeff Powell. It was so awesome. Basically, you're dealing with a treasure hunter who is also a dragon, who's been sentenced to be in a human body. So she's making her way through the world, and she's very like, her name is Luvander. She is kind of being hunted, while also trying to get her hoard back, because like dragons always have like a hoard of gold. And she's trying to accumulate a hoard, and I think eventually kind of break her shackles and become a dragon again, was the original goal anyways, and return back to her dragon family, or, you know, just mess around with them, like, as they like, screw you, But yeah, with Scales and Scoundrels, I think what drew me in the most was not just like the color and the style, because it's really fun, but really it's just, it ticked off all my boxes of what I like to see in a fantasy adventure, you know, with dragons and knights and everything else like that. I think I'm always at a loss. I'm always looking for more books like that because I'm constantly looking for new fantasy, you know, high fantasy, or, you know, fantasy that has that doesn't look like what I normally expect it to look like. And this ticked off all the boxes. Again, I love it. It's a 10 out of 10 for me. It will be a 15 out of 10 if they give me more of it, because there's obviously room for more in these books, but definitely recommend picking them up. And that's my top 10 of the year. And that was hard because I read a lot. And I wish I could put more actual like webtoons from Webtoons on here.
This episode is sponsored by cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for brand new graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They pride themselves on packaging your books so they arrive safely and in excellent condition, as well as prompt and helpful service. Check out the bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. CGN is excited to announce that they are now taking pre-orders. They're making it easier for you to ensure that you don't miss out on the hottest releases. CGN is currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, let them know that you were referred by Near Mint Condition at the checkout, and you'll receive a credit for free shipping on your next order. This promotion is valid for U.S. customers only. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount and quality shipping and customer service that will keep you coming back for more.
So yeah, that's my top 10 of the year. What are you guys' top 10 reads of the year? It doesn't have to be like new books, but it can be new books. What have you read this year? Some old things maybe you revisited? I'd love some recommendations with 2022 coming up of what I should check out. I'm always looking for recommendations based on what I like. Let me know. And if you have any recommendations based on what I've shared of like next places to go, I'm dying to hear it. And just, I hope you guys had a good holiday. I hope you guys have a good start at the new year. And I hope you continue to subscribe, like this video, and I hope that we see you soon.